Hey now, we love our condiments and sauces in this house, but one of our favorites to go on sandwiches with all that charcuterie we have kicking around here or on sausages is Ajvar, which is a delicious, flavorful vegetarian spread that you can put on really almost anything. We love it. Now, this recipe apparently originated off in the Balkans, that whole region there. I'm not going to get into a big debate about who originally made it, but either way, it's delicious, and thank you to whomever developed and spread that recipe across the world because it is beautiful. So come along for the ride. Now, there are some slight variations you can have with a recipe like this. I'm actually going to be using largely red bell peppers. I know that there are some other peppers a person could probably use, some of those long, gnarly, pointed ones or whatever. I had access to these here. They're also beautiful and bright red. I think it's going to give a nice color to the sauce. I'm going with that. Plus, I'm doing some other things here that are going to also contribute a lot of rich flavor to it. We've also got eggplant, and I'm going to be throwing in a little red habanero here for just a little bit of kick. So now that our veg is all washed up and ready to use here, we need to cook it. Now, I'm going to be using my pellet smoker for this. It's going to cook it at a high temperature. We are going to get a little bit of nice smoky flavor in there, which is beautiful in this spread. Alternatively, you could use a charcoal grill that would also get some nice smokiness in there. Failing that, you could use a propane grill and get it on there. You could char up the skin a little bit and it would cook it nicely. Now, if you don't have any of those available to you, you could simply use an oven. You could sit there and roast it and broil it up a little bit. You just would wind up lacking a little bit of that smoky character that I'm going for here. Now, here we are outside at the Pit Boss 700 FB. I love this little smoker here. I've got this set at 450 degrees and I am currently burning maple wood. I'm going with a nice, gentle hardwood pellet in here because I don't want to have anything too aggressive in there because that will give us way more smoke than we're looking for in this recipe. Now, just before I get my veg on here, I am oiling this grate just to help prevent anything from sticking. Now, initially, I'm just adding my peppers here. Now, I will have the full recipe listed in the video description in case you miss any of it here. Now, if you're going for just a single recipe of this, all you would need would be 2 pounds of these red bell peppers. However, I'm basically tripling it, so I've got 6 pounds of them there. And that would be like roughly 4 large bell peppers like this, or 5 more medium-sized if you were just going for that single recipe. I'm also going to be adding my habaneros here. We're going to hold off on adding the eggplant for now, and not just because I don't have room. So after 5 minutes here, I am just flipping my habaneros as they seem to be getting the most char going on here, which is beautiful. Taking a look, we're starting to get some on some of these red peppers. With this smoker here, I'm just going to have to kind of keep an eye and maybe move them around a little bit. We're just looking to get a bit of char on all sides here. Just a couple of minutes later here, we're looking like we have a pretty decent char going on with these habaneros, so I'm going to pop them off. Now, as these peppers start to finish up here, you can tell they start to get nice and soft. These aren't quite as blackened as you would get on a propane grill or perhaps a charcoal grill right over the flame. However, we know that they are smoky and cooked. I've got this eggplant. Now, this was just over 2 pounds. What you're wanting is somewhere roughly around like 3/4 of a pound per 4 of those peppers per 2 pounds. And I'm just going to get these on here now that we have a little bit of room. So it took roughly 30 minutes before all of these peppers were off here and ready. I'm just making sure to keep them covered up so that they can steam, and that's going to help that skin loosen. And then you just want to cook this eggplant until it's nice and soft. Get that fork in there nice and easily. Awesome, this one's actually exploding a little bit. For me, that took just about half an hour in the smoker here. I've now have it powering down. I'm gonna pull these off and let them cool. Now, bear in mind, if you do cook the eggplant at the same time, you wanna make sure that you give these peppers probably at least 20 minutes just to steam in a covered bin. I really like this one because I do have that lid for it, and that's going to make the skin way easier to remove. I'm also going to pull out my habaneros here and put them aside. I'll be peeling them at the same time. However, I'm not going to put them in with the peppers at this point because I'm just not quite sure how spicy they are. So removing the skins from these peppers is quite easy. It just peels off. That's the nice thing about having let it steamed. I'm just firing those skins into another container here just so I can keep them separate. And with that skin off, I'm just going to pull out the stems here. I'm going to strip out as many of those seeds as I can, and I'm just going to put them into a bowl. One little trick that I do like is just to have a bowl here with a little bit of water in here. If you're having trouble getting those seeds out, you can just make sure that your pepper is opened up. Give it a little bit of a wipe in here, and that water just helps wash them all away. Now that I'm done working with those peppers, it's time to deal with this eggplant. I'm just going to scoop out all of the nice pulp here, the flesh of this eggplant, and I'm going to get it into a bowl. And you also want to just cut off the stem there, because anything up there is harder anyway, and then it's just a matter of separating this here from that skin. And there's our eggplant. These peppers are all done here now. You can see that some liquid has come out of them. That's fine. I'm just going to leave that in the bowl here with them. You can see I've got all of those skins, and then there's my little sneaky water trick for removing those seeds. I do have the habaneros here as well. I've got them separate. Now they were a little bit more complicated to do the skinning on than the red peppers were, just because they've got like a thinner wall, so it was just a little bit more delicate. However, it was definitely done, and I got all of those seeds out of there. Of course, I was wearing gloves for that whole process just so I don't destroy my eyes. So now I've got garlic here. With just that base recipe, starting with the 2 pounds of red peppers, you would probably go with like 5, maybe 6 cloves of garlic. Of course, I'm tripling that. I'm going with 15 on this. It just depends how garlicky you like your spread. Now, this needs to be minced. You can either just do that with a knife, or you could use like a garlic press or something like that just to get it busted up. For our next phase, we're moving to the food processor. Now, because I'm doing such a large batch here, I don't have room for everything in here, so I'm going to split everything into roughly thirds, so it's sort of exactly what your typical batch would look like if you were just starting out with the regular size. So we have our red peppers in there. Now for our habaneros, eggplant, and garlic. Now I'm going to pulse this here just for an initial chop. Then I'm going to add the rest of our ingredients. Now going with our 1/3 batch size here, I have a 1/4 cup of olive oil, a tablespoon of vinegar. You can go with your favorite. I'm using red wine. You could also use apple cider vinegar or even just white. 1 teaspoon kosher salt, and some good cracks here of some fresh cracked black pepper. And we're going to resume pulsing. Now with this, we're not looking to go completely smooth, just sort of a fine chop, so there are still some chunks on it. So we're going to do just a little taste test now. Now I know it's not 100% accurate because we're still going to let this simmer. That's going to change things. Also, it wasn't exact thirds of all of those ingredients, but I want to know exactly what the heat is like here to see if I need to adjust that habanero contribution. Oh my, that is delicious. I personally would love that. However, I think it's probably just a little bit spicy for everybody else. So these are really, really hot red habaneros. Now, by the way, the habanero edition is completely optional, depending on what you like for spice. If you want no spice at all, just leave them out. But I think this would be, I just want to make this batch for me. Well, what I'm going to do is I'll probably leave the habaneros out of the rest of it. I'll see how it tastes once it's all combined. I can always pour some of it back into the food processor and hit it with a bit more habanero if I need to. So I just finished my 3rd round of blending. I've been putting the first 2 into this large bowl here. It'll just be a really good way for me to mix. This is the same way that I do my batches of hot sauce, except I'm not using my special glass hot sauce blender for this. All right. I think that heat is going to be probably perfect for this family-friendly version here. It has, coming in the door, I didn't really notice much heat at all. However, in the finish, there's just the slightest little bit. It's going to be perfect for the kids. On my stovetop here in this heavy pan, I've got all of my sauce actually, and I've got this over basically a medium heat, and I'm going to bring it up to a simmer. Once we have this nice light simmer here, you can see that we've got some steam coming off, but it's certainly not boiling. I like to take a rubber scraper and just sort of pay attention to it. You don't have to stir it constantly, but you do want to make sure that you're not burning anything that's on the bottom of this pot, and that also you're not letting it get to the point where it does want to kind of like bubble up and sort of pop and spatter around, because that just makes a mess. After about 40 minutes here, I've got the consistency that I want, so I'm going to turn off the stove here, and we're going to get these into some jars. Because I've made a large batch here, I am going to be pressure canning it. That way I'll be able to just have one open at a time. The rest of them I can just store on the shelf. Will be all good. I'm going to use my silicone canning funnel here. I find that super convenient for doing this. Just going to fill these all up here. This triple batch here made 5 1-pint or 500 ml jars. You do want to make sure prior to actually canning this that you get any air pockets out. I find just a chopstick is a good way to kind of swirl through there and just make sure that there are no pockets. Now this could also probably be frozen. I've never actually done that myself just because I have very little freezer space with everything else going on in the freezers, and I like using the pressure canner here. If you are going to can it like this, just make sure to follow the manufacturer's instructions for your pressure canner. And now we'll fire this up. So with the height of my elevation and the fact that I'm using these pint-sized jars, I'm going with 12 pounds of pressure, and we're going to do that for 35 minutes. And then once that's done, I'm just going to turn off the heat and let it cool down on its own. After the pressure canner cooled down, I just brought out these jars, set them out on the counter, gave them 24 hours, and they are now completely ready to store. With these jars, as long as you keep them in a cold room or some sort of cool storage, once they're canned, they should last you at least a year. I'm very excited to try this, so let's do it. Check that. Gorgeous, nice vibrant orange color here. So we have some nice fresh red bell pepper flavor. There's the creaminess coming out of that eggplant. We've got some smokiness, just nice gentle smokiness, nothing too aggressive going on there. We have some of that nice pungency from the garlic, and of course just that little bit of heat coming out of those red habaneros. Wow, those are awesome. Really glad I incorporated that into it. So this is just sort of like a mild spicy Ajvar. Now, got some fresh spoons here, and going to do a little side-by-side with a commercial version. I'm not going to tell you which one. So here we are. So the commercial one is a little bit redder. We have a little bit more orange going on here with this. These have both been refrigerated, so I thought that would be a little bit more level playing field here. So even though the commercial one is a little bit more red, it's funny because I'm getting way more of that eggplant coming out of it. It's not even a contest. This is way more flavor, way more character going on there. Again, the smoke, a little bit of heat. Even the garlic is far more pronounced in this one. Not over the top, but everything's just in a really, really perfect balance. Fantastic. Now, we got to try this on a sandwich. All right, it is sandwich time. I'm going to start off here, of course, with the Ajvar. Putting this on some homemade sourdough. The other side, I'm going with some of our homemade garlic scape pesto. And now for some meat. Let's go with some lovely mortadella here. And now, out of the home curing chamber here, some Genoa salami. And then we're going to be adding some chipotle pork loin. Then the last of our meat here is going with a little bit of piri-piri pork loin. You can check out all the recipes for these on the channel, how we cured and dry aged them. We're going to need some cheese, so let's get some nice creamy Havarti on here. Now, I did want to throw on some Roma tomatoes, but guess what happens when you have a 17-year-old who decides to eat them all at lunch and not tell you? So I'm just going to have to throw on some little cherry tomatoes here. It's sad, but I definitely wanted some tomato on the sandwich. So here we go, whatever. And we're topping it all off here with a lovely leaf of romaine lettuce. Ha! There we go. Sandwich. I'm quite hungry now. Let's have at this. That's just a symphony of flavors there. With that garlic scape pesto on there, providing that really nice, just sort of pungent, flavorful garlic scape character. We've got, a little crunch from the lettuce, the nice smooth mortadella. There's that nice smoky, a little bit of spicy chipotle pork loin, the spicy piri-piri. We've got that, of course, the Ajvar, the star of the show on there. Just providing everything that we need, rounding out all the flavors, incredibly delicious. So there you have it, our Ajvar recipe, the way that we like it made. Now, this is a really good recipe. It's easily adaptable to whatever sort of equipment you have at home. You can change up the recipe a little bit based on your taste preferences, but either way, it's delicious. I heartily recommend that you try it. And until next time, keep your condiments at 11.